In the middle of a raging snowstorm, a hunter stumbled across something he never expected: a pregnant German shepherd, tied cruelly to a tree, her cries piercing through the wind. Why had someone left her to die? The chilling truth about her owner would leave the entire town in shock. The forest groaned beneath the weight of winter. A lone hunter trudged through the storm, his breath fogging the air, his rifle slung across his back. This wasn't a night for hunting trophies. It was a night for survival. He needed firewood, food, and a path back to safety. Each step crunched into the thick drifts, his heavy boots sinking deeper than he liked. He pulled his fur-lined coat tighter around his shoulders, the cold biting through even the thickest layers. His cheeks burned red from the sting of icy gusts. His beard crusted with frost. For hours he had walked with only the storm as company. The silence broken by the creak of bending branches and the distant crack of falling ice. But even in the heart of nature's chaos, he trusted his instincts. Something about this storm felt different, like it was carrying him toward more than just firewood. Something waited in the trees ahead. The storm raged, swallowing every sound in its icy grip. Yet through the roar of the wind, something faint pierced the chaos. At first, the hunter thought it was the trees groaning under the weight of snow. But then it came again, sharp, trembling, and filled with pain. It wasn't the forest. It was alive. He froze, holding his breath, straining to listen. The sound rose and fell, a pitiful whine carried by the storm. Instinct told him to turn back. Whatever it wasn't his problem. But his boots didn't move. Instead, he found himself trudging forward, following the desperate cry. Branches clawed at his coat as he pushed through the trees, his heart thudding faster with each step. The sound grew louder, raw and urgent, until it seemed to echo inside his chest. His pulse quickened, not from the cold, but from something else: dread. Then the whine cracked into a bark, strained and weak. The hunter's eyes narrowed. Something was fighting for its life out here in the storm. And it was closer than he thought. The hunter pushed through a final wall of snow-laden branches and froze. There, against the trunk of a towering pine, was a sight that made his blood run cold. A German shepherd, her belly swollen with the weight of unborn pups, was tied cruelly to the tree. The rope dug deep into her fur, biting against her neck with every trembling movement. Her body shook violently, half from the storm and half from exhaustion. Her paws were raw, the snow beneath her stained where she had clawed at the ground in desperate attempts to break free. When she saw him, her first instinct was fear. She growled weakly, baring her teeth, but it was a sound more broken than threatening. Then came the whine again, a plea wrapped in pain. Her eyes locked onto his, wide and glassy, begging for mercy. She wasn't fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for the lives she carried inside her. The hunter's chest tightened. This wasn't a wild animal to chase away. This was cruelty, deliberate, merciless cruelty. Someone had left her here to die. The hunter dropped to his knees, snow soaking through his trousers as he reached for the rope. His gloves slipped against the frozen fibers, stiff with ice. He yanked hard, but the knots were pulled tight, digging deeper into the dog's neck with every tug. The German shepherd whimpered, her body jerking in pain. "Easy, girl," he murmured, stripping off his gloves despite the biting cold. His bare fingers burned as they pressed against the icy rope. He worked quickly, his nails splitting, skin tearing, but he didn't stop. The storm howled around them, snow lashing his face. Yet all he saw were her pleading eyes. At last, the rope gave way with a snap. The dog collapsed into his arms, too weak to stand, her swollen belly pressing against his coat. He wrapped his arms around her trembling body, shielding her from the wind. She wasn't just heavy with life, she was heavy with trust. Surrendering herself to the stranger who refused to let her die in the snow, the hunter pushed through the storm with the dog cradled in his arms, her body limp against his chest. Each step was a battle, but at last his cabin came into view, its windows glowing faintly against the white wilderness. He kicked the door open, stumbling inside with his burden. Warmth and firelight greeted them, a stark contrast to the freezing hell outside. He laid her gently by the hearth, wrapping her in blankets, his hands shaking as he rubbed life back into her. Slowly, her breathing steadied, though her body still shivered. As the flames licked higher, He finally saw the truth the snow had hidden. Scars crisscrossed her legs. Old wounds marred her back. These were not the marks of an accident. They were the proof of repeated cruelty. Then, as he adjusted the blanket, his fingers brushed against a collar buried in her fur. He pulled it free, his jaw tightening. The tag was engraved with a name he recognized, one that belonged to a man from town. His stomach twisted. This wasn't just neglect. This was betrayal. And the truth about her owner would soon rock the entire community. Night deepened, and the blizzard outside grew wilder, battering the cabin walls with furious gusts. Inside, the German shepherd stirred restlessly, her breathing quickening. The hunter knelt beside her, his heart pounding as realization struck. She was going into labor. He fetched old towels, water, and whatever supplies he could gather, setting them by the fire. His rough hands, more used to rifles and traps, now trembled with gentleness. "Easy, girl," he whispered, his voice soft in the crackle of flames. Her body tensed, and a sharp whine escaped her throat. He stroked her head, offering comfort she had likely never known. Hours felt like minutes as the storm raged outside, drowning the forest in white. One by one, tiny cries filled the cabin, fragile yet alive. The hunter carefully placed each newborn pup against their mother, who licked them weakly, her eyes glassy with exhaustion but burning with instinct. When the last whimper finally joined the chorus, the hunter sat back, breathless. Amid a world of ice and cruelty, new life had pushed through, and for the first time, hope warmed the cabin brighter than fire. At BY morning, the storm had quieted, leaving the forest buried beneath a heavy silence. The hunter wrapped himself in his coat and trudged into town, the dog's collar and tag clutched tightly in his fist. He didn't need to read the engraved name again. He already knew who it belonged to. When the sheriff examined the tag, his jaw tightened. "We've had complaints about him before," he muttered. "Neighbors said he beat his animals, left them tied out in the cold. But no one ever had proof." The hunter placed the collar firmly on the desk. "Now you do." Word spread quickly. Outrage swept through the town as people learned the truth. The owner hadn't lost his dog. He had abandoned her, tied her to die in the storm so he wouldn't be burdened by her unborn pups. The hunter returned to his cabin, the fire glowing bright. The mother dog lifted her head weakly, her puppies nursing by her side. He knew one thing with certainty. She would never see that man again. The hunter sat quietly by the hearth, watching as the German shepherd curled protectively around her newborn pups. The storm outside had passed, but inside his cabin, warmth lingered, brought not only by the fire, but by the fragile breaths of new life. He reached out, brushing his calloused fingers gently over the dog's head. She no longer flinched. Instead, her eyes softened, filled with a trust that had never been given before. She had been abandoned, betrayed by the one who should have protected her. Yet here she was, safe, her future rewritten by a stranger who refused to walk away. Days turned to weeks. The pups grew stronger, tumbling clumsily across the wooden floor. Laughter, once foreign to the cabin, now filled its walls. The hunter, once a solitary figure, found himself surrounded by life and loyalty. He smiled faintly, whispering to the mother dog, "You're home now." And in that moment, he realized, sometimes the greatest hunts aren't for what you take, but for what you choose to save.